I'm Sharon. I'm a grateful, recovering compulsive eater, and I'm abstinent today by the grace of God and the help of this community. And I know I'm abstinent because, like all of you, I plan 3 weighed and measured meals a day from the GreySheets. I write my food down. I commit it to my sponsor. I don't eat anything in between my meals, no matter what. And my abstinence is the most important thing in my life, without exception. And I really mean that when I say it's the most important thing in my life. It really is the most important thing in my life. I'm not just rolling off our mantra because that's what I do. I say it because it's my mantra, and it is the way I live my life. And I've been grateful and willing to weigh and measure and live this way of life from the moment I got here on the 25th of March 2006. I arrived at the London meeting. That's the Saturday morning, 10 a.m. London meeting. At that time, I was living in London. And so 2006, so that was 13 years, 4 months, and 7 days ago. How incredible is that? Woo! Who'd have thought? I'm also 13 years older than I was when I started. So I started when I was 37, and I just turned 50 in September last year. Unbelievable, really. And if I'm honest, I'm fitter and stronger and happier and healthier than I was in my 30s and in my early 40s. I mean, it took me. There's a saying in GreySheeters Anonymous: if you want to know why you ate, get abstinent. And so, I had a road of healing ahead of me that I could never have done on my own. So, getting abstinent, putting the food on the scale in that first couple of years was, I won't lie, it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Facing the years of self-neglect that had gone on because I was crippled by this progressive, and I mean progressive, and critical illness. I know I have today. I didn't know I had an illness then. I just thought I was weak-willed, that I couldn't, restrict the way I ate for long enough in order to be a normal size. I wanted to be skeletal. I thought that was normal. And of course, I was chasing an illusion. And the tragedy of chasing that illusion was a complete loss of self, a complete loss of my own dignity and self-respect, and a completely dysmorphic sense of what I thought I needed to look like in order to be acceptable to myself. And coming to GreySheeters Anonymous and following this way of life has healed my dysmorphia. And what a miracle. What an absolute miracle. The woman I see today looking back at me is incredible. I mean, how magnificent. And I don't mean that in a kind of vain way, but I look at photographs of myself as a teenager and as a young woman. I mean, this illness had taken hold by the time I was in my 20s, but I was an athletic, healthy, sort of normal-looking young girl. Although I wasn't. I was mentally and emotionally, I was very unhappy a lot of the time, and I started eating abnormally. I've shared this before. I was aware from the age of about 8, I reckon, 7 or 8 years old. I was aware that I ate differently to my peers. So when I would be invited round to friends' houses for sleepovers, and I would always want seconds, and my girlfriends had had enough after one portion. I always wanted to eat as much as the adults. I ate leftovers in secret when nobody was looking. and I stole food when I visited other people's homes. And I felt deeply ashamed of the way I behaved. And I felt, you know, the self-loathing started then already. I mean, how tragic is that for a young girl to feel ashamed and different and so alone in herself, so young. And that was before puberty. And of course, as soon as I reached puberty and started to become sexually aware, and the self-consciousness and the self-loathing just escalated. And with that came the escalation around, you know, the binging and the starving and the trying to control I just wanted to change how I felt in my skin. I wanted to look different. I believed in this insane idea that somehow my body shape was wrong. I was heavier than the other girls. I wasn't tall and willowy. Anyway, whatever. I just felt like an alien. And how sad. I have that young teenager in my arms regularly and stroking her hair and loving her and telling her how beautiful she is and how she had, you know, that everything then is all right and that she's all right. And that comes from Grey Sheet Abstinence. And that comes from, you know, working with, you know, beautiful women in this program who taught me how to love myself, you know, how to take care of myself. I've had 2 sponsors in 13 years, and they both would regularly get me to send them photographs of myself because we lived in different towns, and at one point my second sponsor lived in a different country, and so she wanted to see regular photographs of me and full body pics, you know, from toes to the top of my head, not just my shoulder shot. I was terrified of you seeing, you know, the whole me. And it was through that process of her seeing photos of me and validating what she saw when she'd say, you know, you're absolutely fine. You're on the right track. You don't need to lose weight. Can you imagine that for this morphic compulsive eater of my type? Somebody saying that I'm fine, I'm healthy, I've got a healthy weight, I'm a healthy body shape. And you know, women in this fellowship who explained to me that, you know, people have different muscular skeletal makeup. Like I have a different skeleton, I have a different muscle type to the woman, you know, to many, we are all different. And of course, I would see these long, slender, sort of bean-like, willowy women, and I would think that because I didn't look like that there was something wrong with me. I mean, that's how insane this illness is. Anyway, fast forward the tape. So, you know, I don't have to go on too much about the war. I mean, we don't get to GreySheeters Anonymous unless we've had a pretty tragic, difficult time with food, in my experience. And again, I'm only sharing my experience. I'm not speaking on behalf of GreySheeters Anonymous. I'm just sharing my experience. I could not stop binging, starving, dieting, binging, starving, dieting over and over and over and over again until I was teetering over 200 pounds and I was suicidal. Yeah. And that's when I came crawling into these rooms, having tried regular other 12-step food fellowships that suggested I have 3 meals a day with nothing in between. It was a suggestion I avoid the white stuff, no refined sugars or starch. In fact, I had a sponsor in a different food fellowship who said, I don't care what you eat, as long as it's just 3 times a day. So, you know, that's what I did. And I was bright red, and I had no real physical recovery in that fellowship. And there was no consistent message about, you know, what was abstinence. Everybody could define their own abstinence. I mean, madness for an addict of my compulsive eater of my type. Don't know about any of you, but I had been trying to define my own abstinence for as long as I could remember. And so I found myself here, and I heard this incredible, strong, consistent message, which was, we weigh and measure 3 meals a day from a food plan. And this food plan comes with a sponsor, and a sponsor is another member of this fellowship with over 90 days of back-to-back abstinence, who follows this way of life, who has a sponsor, who has a sponsor, who has a sponsor. And it tells you how much you can have, how often, boom. And we put it on a scale, boom. There's no, and that's it. There's no wriggle room. There's no, you know, you're either abstinent or you're not. You know, and I love the saying in GreySheeters Anonymous. People say it's like you're either pregnant or you're not. You're either abstinent or you're not. You can't be half pregnant, I'll say, in American accent. And I'm like, I get it. I just got it. And for a food addict, compulsive eater of my type, hearing that message, that clear, systematic, consistent, here's what we do to get well. This is what we need to do. We suffer with a threefold illness. You have a physical allergy to these foods. And so we have to not include those in our diet. And the reason we don't include them is because they trigger the same phenomenon of craving as alcohol does in the bloodstream of an alcoholic. It's the same chemical reaction that happens. And I get it. I so got it. I was just like, I understand. So sugar, grains, and starch in my bloodstream renders me completely powerless to control the quantities I eat. And then secondly, I was born, and I love saying this to people who say, God, so why do you have to weigh your food? Because I was born without an off button. I have no idea, you know, how much I can have. And my family have just been to stay on holiday, and my brother rang. I said, let me get a take-in, you know, for all of us. So when you arrive, we don't have to cook, and it'll all be delivered. And so there are 2 adults and 2 children, and it was me and my mum and my husband. So 5 adults and 2 children. Well, when they arrived and the takeout arrived, this whole dining room table was covered in packets and boxes of takeout. And my brother said, how many people are you expecting? And I said, it's for you. And he said, for God's sake, he said, you've got enough food for like 12 families. It was ridiculous. We threw half of it away. And that's because I don't have any idea. The way I think of how much people eat is always way more than people eat. And that's just you'll hear people in Grey Sheets say, oh, our eyes are broken. So I need a scale, tells me exactly how much I can have, and also how often and what I can have. How wonderful is that? I don't have to work it out. I just have to look at my Grey Sheet, write it down, plan it, call my sponsor, tell her what I'm having. If in doubt, leave it out. I've got these wonderful, wonderful sayings. Like if there's something you're not sure about, just leave it out and call someone, you know, call your sponsor. And if she doesn't have the answer, she'll ask her sponsor. And if she doesn't have the answer, she'll ask her sponsor. And she'd say to me, and you won't starve. You're not going to die if you don't have that particular product, you know. And I haven't died. And there's been many if in doubt, leaving it out. And anyway, I've jumped around a little bit. I suppose my message this evening is that this has worked for a compulsive eater of my type. Once the food went on the scale and I had 90 days of back-to-back Grey Sheet abstinence, I was then qualified to sponsor somebody else. And we then have a set of 12 spiritual principles in the 12 steps of recovery, as the same recovery program is outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We now have a wonderful 12 steps and 12 traditions of GreySheeters Anonymous. It's the same principle. Food is only mentioned, that's my timer, once in step 1. We admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives had become unmanageable. The rest of the program is about a set of spiritual principles that I need to live my life by. And that I do with a sponsor systematically. We just go round and round and round. And I have a daily check-in, a daily 10-step inventory, because I have to change. Just weighing and measuring my food would be like being on a diet. And this isn't a diet club. I have to completely change my whole way of behaving, my whole way of thinking, my whole way of everything. And I do that with the help of a sponsor, this community, service, the steps, and so we move forward. So my time's up, and I could have said so much more to share with you, but I'll have to save that for outreach. So call me anytime. You've got my number. I'm on the list, the European contacts list. All my details are there. So give me a ring. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.